Hi everybody, welcome to our channel, Rebecca Stu and the crew. It's Thursday, so it's time for our weekly DIY video. We're going to make this farmhouse sign for Christmas using items mostly from the Dollar Tree, and I'll go over the supplies and parts when we get to each part of the craft. So let's go over the supplies for part one, which are the paper pine cones. I picked up a roll of this crafting paper at the Dollar Tree. They sell them in these large rolls down the office supply aisle. You'll need some green paper, some of the fake snow Dollar Tree's been selling, Mod Podge, and a sponge brush. We're also going to use a little bit of hot glue to put it all together, some ribbon of your choice for the top of the pine cones. We'll need a hole puncher and a pair of scissors, a push pin or something to poke a hole with. You'll need a compass, and then we're also going to use a ruler, a pencil. We'll need some double-sided sticky tape, or you could just use glue, and then some string. So let's get crafty. First thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out a 14 by 11 inch square of the craft paper, and then we're going to mark it at 4 inches and at 8 inches, which will give us 3 strips of paper. 2 of them will be 14 by 4 inches and 1 will be 14 by 3. So once you have all 3 of those done, we're going to start putting those together. So you're going to take the first piece and fold it down about 1/4 of the way at the top so we can apply this strip of double-sided sticky tape. So you just apply the strip and remove the barrier tape here, and then we're going to fold this paper up and underneath that little flap that we just created. And we're basically making like a little teardrop form here. So you're just going to take that little flap that we have the tape on and just glue that down or stick that down with that other piece of paper underneath of that little flap. And we're going to do this to all 3 pieces of paper. And as you can see, it just makes this little teardrop effect looking shape here. So once we have that done, we're going to mark with a ruler about 1/2 inch from the curved end. That way we know how far in to cut. If you cut your little strips more uniform, it tends to make it look a little bit better. So we're just going to cut these little strips about 1/2 inch deep, cutting from right to left. I'll show you guys how we do this for each strip because there's different measurements for all 3. So for the first one, we're going to cut 1/8 of an inch to the center of the paper, and then 1/4 of an inch from the center to the end of the paper. Then you're going to start with the smallest part, the 1/8 inch strips that you cut, and start rolling just using some hot glue to put this together. So you just want to roll it about 2 or 3 times and then put a little bit more hot glue as you go. You don't need to do hot glue on the whole entire strip, just every few twirls or rolls, then you'll need to put a little bit more hot glue there. And then of course make sure you have enough hot glue for the end, and you don't want to roll it too tight. As you can see the bottom there, I don't have it wrapped really tightly. You do want to keep it open just a little bit since we're making this look like a pine cone and not a flower. Now for row 2, we're going to cut 1/4 inch to the center and then 1/2 inch pieces from the center to the end. And then starting with the 1/4 inch strips, you're going to glue that from the piece we just ended at. And you're just going to glue this around as a row 2 and do the same exact process, just using a little bit of hot glue as you go. And as you can see, we're layering this, so we went down a little bit for the second row of paper. So we've got our second roll done. And now for the third piece, we're going to cut 1/2 inch to the center and then 3/4 inches all the way to the end from the center down. So gradually your little cuts get larger as you go, and that helps change the little pieces of the pine cone, just like you would see a pine cone in nature, how it's a lot tinier towards the top, and then the little petals there get bigger as it gets down to the other end of the pine cone. Now we're just going to finish that off with some hot glue. And then to fix the pine cone to make it look a little bit more natural, you just kind of fluff it up and arrange the little papers, and eventually you'll get it to where it looks a lot more like a pine cone just by pulling those little tabs out a little bit. And you can even curl a few under on the ends just to help make it look a little bit more realistic. So now we'll set that aside for a few minutes, and we're going to draw 2 circles. So we're going to draw a 3.5 inch circle and a 1.5 inch circle. And by the way, this project takes 2 pine cones if you want to put 2 on it. So I did make 2 of these. You're just going to cut your circle out, and then you're going to fold your circle in half. Fold it in half again, the opposite direction, and then you're going to fold it one more time so you have 8 sections of this circle so it looks like a pie shape. So once you have it folded into this pie shape, just open it up, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut out one section of this circle here, and that's going to help us make the top of our pine cone. So as you can see, we have all these little sections here. So you just want to cut one pie section out. Then taking some hot glue, just put a little bit of glue on one pie section of the circle here, and then close up the gap with the other piece to create a cone shape. And you're going to do the exact same thing to the small circle. Once the glue has dried, we're going to go into each crease and we're going to cut a little triangle shape out to help it blend into the rest of the pine cone shape. And again, you'll do the exact same thing to the 1.5 inch circle. And taking your push pin, you're just going to poke a hole in the top of both of your circles, and then we're going to do the string right through the center, and of course you're going to layer the smaller piece on top of the larger piece. Then once your string is through, you're just going to flip it over to the underside, and you're going to tie a knot and then cut off your excess string. Then just take a little bit of hot glue and pull that string all the way up to the top, the knot there inside, and then add some hot glue there to help hold that inside of the top of the pine cone here. So while that glue dries for just a second, we're going to take our pine cone in this end here. We need to make it a little bit shorter. So we're just going to cut some little notches all the way around and then just fold those tabs in towards the center of the pine cone. That's going to give us a little ledge here to attach the top of the pine cone. Just use your hot glue to attach it, and you do want to hold it in place until it's dry. And now we're going to work on the leaves. So we need a 6x6 and a 4x4 square of green paper. You're going to do the same thing to both squares. You're just going to fold it in half. Then turn your paper and fold it in half again. And then you're going to want to fold this into a triangle. Now when you do, you want to make sure that the closed end is going to be at the bottom, because when you open this up, these are going to be our leaves. We want to make sure it stays attached, just like if you were doing a paper snowflake. So you want to make sure that corner is down at the bottom in the center. Now just taking a pencil, you're just going to draw a curved line down to the end, and then just draw about 6 or 7 dots that we're going to punch out with the hole puncher. Then I just cut it out with my scissors and use my hole punch to punch the holes out of the little pieces of the leaves here. I am using cardstock, so it was a little bit difficult to get through all of the layers. If you use construction paper, it would be a little bit easier. Once you have all of your holes punched in, all you're going to do is take your scissors and cut from the outside edge down towards the center, and just cut little V shapes out all the way to the little dot, and you'll do that all the way down to the bottom. And then that closed end, we're going to cut just a little hole out of it just by cutting the corner off, and then the top of the leaf we're going to cut a little V shape out of the top to help make the leaf shape at the top of the green paper. And then just open it up, and as you can see, you've got your leaves, and we're going to do the same thing with a smaller piece of green paper. Then we're just going to layer these onto the pine cone using the string. So I did the larger set of leaves first and attached it with some hot glue, and then taking the smaller set of leaves, doing the same process. We're just going to layer that on the green leaves that we just did, but we're going to turn it so that it's between the larger leaves. As you can see here, I've got the smaller leaves between the larger leaves, and then to hold that in place, I just attached some more hot glue. Now you could leave your pine cones as is if you like. I wanted to add some fake snow to these. I thought it would help make them look a little bit more realistic. So I'm just taking a little bit of Mod Podge. You could use Elmer's glue if you like, and just brush it on. Just kind of up the leaves. You don't really have to be real specific as you're putting the glue on here, and then you just want to sprinkle your glue on as you go around, and then kind of push down on it a little bit to help make sure it sticks to the paper, and just go all the way around the pine cones. And you can add some to the leaves as well. And I did this to both pine cones. So now we're going to go ahead and set these aside to dry and start working on the larger part of the sign. So the supplies for this, will need a Dollar Tree 11 by 14 inch canvas. We're also going to use some paper from Hobby Lobby, and we're going to use this wood sign from Dollar Tree, the Mod Podge and sponge brush. We'll use some white chalk paint. We're also going to use some black paint, and then I'm going to use a little bit of the Waverly antiquing wax, some hot glue, and then some of these berries and these little greenery from the Dollar Tree. So the first thing I did was I painted the sign with the white chalk paint, and I wasn't super careful to make sure it was completely covered because I was also going to do the antiquing wax layer and then go back over it again with the white paint to do like a dry brush technique. Now, once these signs are painted, it's a little hard sometimes to distinguish the difference between the letters. So I just take a little bit of black paint and I filled in a few of the spaces between the letters at the top, and then of course at the bottom I painted between the letters to show where one starts and one ends. Then I did take a black paint marker and I ended up going around the whole entire sign just to help it stand out a little bit. Now taking the antiquing wax, I just brush it on kind of willy-nilly all over the sign, and then to help it spread out a little bit because I didn't want it real dark, I just dip it in water, the paintbrush in some water, and then go over it and then rub the top of it off with a paper towel just to help spread that antiquing wax out. And then, like I said, I just took the white paint and I did a dry brush technique, which was just putting a little bit of white paint on, brushing a little bit off before I applied it to the sign, and did the dry brush technique. And then any of the black edging that needed touched up, I just touched that up once I was finished with the white paint. So we'll set that aside to dry, and now we're going to attach our paper to our canvas. So I just took a large sponge brush and some Mod Podge and did a really thin layer of the Mod Podge across the whole entire top of our canvas, and then taking our paper from Hobby Lobby, this is just called Gray Wood. It's just in their cardstock section of the store. You can usually get them for $1. So I did need to use 2 pieces to cover the whole entire canvas here. I just measured and cut the little excess that I needed off of a second sheet, and then make sure you line up the lines so that the wood grain matches and that the coloring matches when you line it up on the end of your canvas. And again, if you need more Mod Podge, just add a little bit extra if it's dried before you can get this second piece on. So once that was done, I wanted to put some frost of this, like the kind of like a frost look or some snowy look around the edges. So I did this to all 3 corners. I did the 2 bottom corners and the top right corner. I just put a little bit of Mod Podge with the sponge brush and then just sprinkle on the fake snow from the Dollar Tree. Then using some hot glue, now that the sign is dry, I'm just going to attach this to the sign. And I did have it a little bit off center because I want to put the pine cones on the top left corner of the sign, and I wanted to have enough room to attach those. So as you can see, I added a bow to the top of our pine cones. It's just a simple bow. I made 4 loops and then just tie them together in the center and attached it with some hot glue to the pine cone. And then I'm just going to attach these pine cones using some hot glue. I was initially going to stop here, but it didn't really quite look finished to me yet. That's when I decided to add a little bit of this snowy greenery picks that I had from the Dollar Tree. I just pulled a few pieces of these ferns off and attached those using a little bit of hot glue. And then I had some of these red berries as well from Dollar Tree, so I added those to the ferns and the pine cones just to help bring a little bit more color into the sign. And I just pull those apart and cut them down to size that I would need to add to the pine cones in the sign. So you can add as much or as little as you like. I'm so happy with the way this turned out. I really have been wanting to use this Merry and Bright sign. They have them out this year, but I actually picked it up last year and had never used it. So I was real happy I was able to use it this year, and I'm real happy with the way this turned out. I hope you guys enjoy this DIY, learning how to make these paper pine cones. They would even make really cute ornaments just all by themselves. So I hope you guys enjoy learning how to do this craft with me today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great night, everyone.